Welcome to my channel. Subscribe, listen, and enjoy my stories every day. I still remember the crisp morning we set out for the mountains, the air charged with the promise of escape and adventure. Mia sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone with a quiet intensity. Her long brown hair fell over her shoulders, framing a face that could light up any room, or so I used to think. 9 years of marriage had taught me to cherish these moments of quiet companionship, yet a faint shadow lingered in her eyes, one I couldn't quite place. As we drove, she mentioned needing a bathroom break. I spotted a Wawa just off the highway and pulled in. She grabbed her purse, her phone buzzing as she stepped out. "Back in a sec," she said with a quick smile. I stayed in the car, reaching for my phone out of habit. Then hers buzzed again. This time, it caught my eye. She'd left it on the seat, a rare occurrence. I hesitated, knowing I shouldn't invade her privacy. But when the screen lit up with a message, my curiosity got the better of me. "Can't wait to see you again, babe." The words felt like a punch to the gut. My breath hitched as I stared at the unknown number. My mind scrambled for explanations. A wrong number, maybe. But deep down, I already knew. Before I could process further, I caught sight of Mia through the windshield. She was sprinting out of Wawa, her purse swinging wildly. It was a bizarre sight, one that froze me in place. She reached the car, wrenched the door open, and snatched her phone from the seat. Her fingers moved swiftly, locking it before stuffing it into her purse. "What's the rush?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Oh, I realized I left my phone here," she said, her voice tight. "Didn't want to lose it." I nodded, filing the moment away. I could have confronted her then and there, but something held me back. A road trip wasn't the place for a showdown, and besides, I needed proof. If I'd learned anything in my IT career, it was the value of data over assumptions. The rest of the drive passed in uneasy silence. Mia fiddled with her phone, her thumb moving in quick, deliberate swipes. She barely looked up, offering only vague responses to my attempts at conversation. When we finally reached the cabin, I was grateful for the distraction of unpacking and settling in. That evening, as we sat on the porch overlooking the woods, I couldn't shake the weight in my chest. Mia seemed oblivious, scrolling through her phone under the guise of doing surveys for work. "Just trying to earn some extra points," she said with a laugh when I made a sarcastic comment about her screen time. I forced a smile but said nothing. The air between us felt heavy, charged with the unspoken truth I wasn't ready to face. Back home, I couldn't let it go. My suspicions gnawed at me, pushing me to action. I waited until Mia was asleep one night, her breathing deep and steady beside me. Her phone lay on the nightstand, tantalizingly close. With careful hands, I reached for it, my heart pounding in my ears. The lock screen stared back at me, defying my attempts to unlock it. Frustration bubbled up, but I refused to give in. Instead, I turned to our shared phone bill, accessible through an app on my own device. Scrolling through the call logs, one number stood out, a Virginia area code that appeared repeatedly over the past few months. I copied the number into a reverse lookup service, but it led nowhere, a VoIP number, untraceable to a specific person. My suspicions deepened. Whoever Mia was talking to wanted to stay anonymous. The realization sent a chill down my spine. But it wasn't enough. I needed more. Over the next few days, I played the part of the attentive husband, careful not to arouse her suspicions. I made casual conversation, offered to cook dinner, even suggested a date night. Inside, though, I was a storm of anger and determination. One evening, while she showered, I accessed her laptop. Her email was open, and my hands trembled as I scrolled through the inbox. Most of it was mundane, work updates, newsletters, spam. But then I found a folder marked Archived. My heart sank as I clicked it open. There it was. Emails from someone named Ethan, filled with casual flirtation and inside jokes. They referenced meetings, late-night dinners, and shared moments that painted a picture I didn't want to see. The pieces clicked into place. Ethan was her dance partner, someone she spent hours practicing with for their upcoming competition. The thought of them together, entwined on and off the dance floor, made my stomach churn. I closed the laptop and sat back, the weight of betrayal settling over me. The woman I'd built my life with, the partner I'd trusted above all else, had been living a double life. But if she thought she could get away with it, she was wrong. As much as it hurt, I knew I had to bide my time. I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to make sure she felt the full impact of her choices. The next morning, I greeted Mia with a kiss on the cheek, masking the storm within. "Big plans for the day?" I asked as I poured her coffee. "Just practice with Ethan," she said casually, as if the name didn't cut me like a blade. "Sounds good," I replied, my voice steady. "Break a leg." I watched her leave, the door closing softly behind her. The time for subtlety was over. It was time to set my plan in motion. The morning after my discovery, I woke early, my mind racing with half-formed plans. Mia lay beside me, her breathing soft and steady. It was hard to reconcile this image of her, peaceful and familiar, with the woman whose emails I'd unearthed the night before. The contrast fueled my resolve. She had to face the consequences of her betrayal, but I would choose the time and place. After she left for her dance practice with Ethan, I dove into my preparations. First, I compiled the evidence, screenshots of emails, phone logs, and snippets of her calendar showing work meetings that overlapped with her rendezvous. It felt strange and invasive, but every piece was a step toward justice. I transferred everything to a secure folder on my laptop, encrypting it to ensure she couldn't accidentally stumble upon it. That evening, I decided to test the waters. Over dinner, I casually brought up her dance competition. "So, the big event's coming up soon," I said, stabbing at a piece of chicken on my plate. Mia smiled, though her expression seemed a touch guarded. "Yeah, it's next Saturday. Ethan and I have been working hard. I think we've got a good shot at winning." "That's great," I replied, keeping my tone light. "It must be nice having a partner you can trust so much." Her fork paused mid-air, just for a fraction of a second, before she resumed eating. "He's a good guy," she said, not meeting my eyes. "We make a good team." I nodded, pretending to accept her answer. Inside, I catalogued the reaction, a small crack in her otherwise polished facade. She was hiding something, but she didn't suspect I already knew. The week leading up to the competition was a blur of planning and feigned normalcy. Mia continued her practices, disappearing for hours on end while I worked late nights, supposedly catching up on projects. In reality, I was laying the groundwork for my revenge. I reached out to the competition organizers, posing as a sponsor interested in supporting the event. It took some effort, but I convinced them to let me make a special announcement during the award ceremony. They seemed thrilled at the idea of added drama to the evening, unaware of my true motives. Next, I recruited a few allies. My younger brother, Kevin, had always been protective of me, and when I told him the truth about Mia, he was livid. "She deserves whatever's coming to her," he said, his voice tight with anger. "You tell me what you need, and I'm in." I also confided in our mutual friend, Rachel, who worked as a photographer. "You want me to document the fallout?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "Not exactly," I said. "But if things go south, I'll need someone I can trust to back me up." Rachel agreed, though she made it clear she thought I was treading dangerous ground. "Revenge is a double-edged sword, Lucas," she warned. "Be sure you're ready for whatever comes next." Finally, the day of the competition arrived. Mia spent the morning flitting around the house, gathering her costumes and makeup with a giddy energy I hadn't seen in months. She kissed me on the cheek before leaving. "Wish me luck," she called, her voice bright and carefree. Break a leg, I said, watching her go with a mixture of anger and sadness. This would be the last time I saw her like this, untouched by the weight of her actions. That evening, I dressed carefully, choosing a sharp suit that projected confidence. Kevin arrived to pick me up, his jaw set in determination. "You ready for this?" he asked as we climbed into his car. "More than you know," I replied, though my stomach churned with nerves. The venue buzzed with excitement when we arrived. Couples in glittering outfits milled about, the air thick with hairspray and anticipation. I spotted Mia and Ethan across the room, laughing together as they stretched near the stage. The sight sent a pang through my chest, but I pushed it aside. Tonight wasn't about emotions. It was about justice. Mia and Ethan's performance was flawless. Their movements were perfectly synchronized, their chemistry undeniable. The crowd roared with applause as they finished, and I found myself clapping despite everything. For a moment, I understood why she might have been drawn to this world, its glamour and intensity, so unlike the quiet stability I offered. But then I remembered the emails, the lies, the look on her face when she snatched her phone at Wawa. Whatever excuses she had didn't justify the betrayal. As the judges deliberated, I made my way backstage. I caught Mia's eye and smiled, a friendly, nonchalant expression that seemed to put her at ease. "You were incredible out there," I said, and I meant it. "Good luck with the results." "Thanks," she replied, beaming. "It means a lot that you're here." I nodded, turning away before she could see the steel in my gaze. This was it. Showtime. The MC's voice boomed across the auditorium, calling the crowd to attention as the judges finalized their scores. The atmosphere was electric, applause echoed off the walls, and performers exchanged nervous glances while spectators murmured in anticipation. I stood near the edge of the stage, my hands clasped behind my back, rehearsing my lines in my head. This wasn't just a reveal, it was the crescendo of months of deceit and planning. I needed it to land perfectly. "Ladies and gentlemen," the MC began, "we're about to announce the winners of tonight's competition. But before we do, we have a special presentation from one of tonight's guests." My cue. I stepped onto the stage, microphone in hand. The audience quieted, their curiosity piqued. My heart pounded in my chest, but I steadied my breathing and forced a smile. "Good evening, everyone," I said, my voice calm and measured. "First, let me say how honored I am to be here. The performances tonight have been nothing short of spectacular. But I'd like to take a moment to share a story, one that I think will resonate with many of you." The room was silent, all eyes on me. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mia standing beside Ethan in the wings. Her expression shifted from curiosity to unease as I continued. "Tonight, we've witnessed incredible partnerships, built on trust, respect, and passion. Dance is a language of connection, and the bonds we see on this stage are a testament to the power of that connection. But what happens when those bonds are built on lies?" A murmur rippled through the crowd. Mia's eyes widened, her hand clutching Ethan's arm. I met her gaze, holding it for a moment before turning back to the audience. "I want to talk about integrity," I said, pacing slowly across the stage. "About what happens when someone you trust betrays that trust in the most profound way. About the pain of realizing that the partnership you thought was unbreakable was, in fact, a facade." I paused, letting the weight of my words settle. The tension in the room was palpable. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small remote, clicking it to activate the projector behind me. Images flickered to life on the screen, a series of emails between Mia and Ethan, their flirtatious exchanges laid bare for all to see. Gasps erupted from the audience. "Allow me to introduce my wife, Mia," I said, my voice sharp now. "And her dance partner, Ethan. Together, they've created a masterpiece on stage. But off stage, they've crafted something far darker." Mia stepped forward, her face pale. "Lucas, what are you doing?" she hissed, her voice trembling. "Just telling the truth," I said, not looking at her. "Something you seem to have forgotten how to do." I clicked the remote again, and a text exchange appeared. It detailed a rendezvous at a hotel, their thinly veiled excuses for leaving their partners behind. More gasps, mixed now with whispers of disbelief. "Dancing isn't the only thing they've been practicing," I said, my voice cutting through the noise. "For months, my wife has been leading a double life, lying to me, and to everyone around her." Mia lunged for the microphone, but I stepped back, holding it out of her reach. "Lucas, stop," she cried, her voice breaking. "We can talk about this later, privately." "No, Mia. You made this public the moment you chose to betray me in front of the world." I turned back to the crowd. I wanted everyone to see the truth. To see what happens when trust is shattered. The MC stepped forward, clearly unsure how to handle the situation. Folks, I think we should." "I'm almost done," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "I'll leave you all with this: betrayal cuts deeper than any physical wound. But it also frees us from the illusion of loyalty, of love built on lies. And now, I'm free." With that, I dropped the microphone and walked off the stage. The audience erupted, some in applause, others in stunned silence. Mia stood frozen, tears streaming down her face. Ethan looked as if he wanted to disappear. Backstage, Kevin was waiting, his arms crossed and a satisfied smirk on his face. "That was something else, man. I just did what needed to be done," I said, my voice hollow. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving a strange emptiness in its wake. Mia appeared moments later, her face streaked with tears. "Lucas, please," she said, reaching for me. "I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, stepping back. "You made your choice, Mia. And tonight, I made mine." She sobbed, clutching at her dress. "I was stupid, okay? It didn't mean anything. I love you, Lucas." "Love?" I laughed bitterly. "You don't betray someone you love. You don't lie to them, cheat on them, and humiliate them." Ethan appeared, hovering awkwardly in the background. "Maybe I should." "Leave," I snapped, cutting him off. He nodded and disappeared into the shadows, leaving Mia to face me alone. "I'll fix this," she said desperately. "I'll do whatever it takes." "You can't fix this," I said, my voice cold. "It's over, Mia. You ended us the moment you decided he was worth more than your vows." I walked away, leaving her crumpled on the floor. The roar of the audience faded behind me as I stepped out into the night. Kevin followed silently, his presence a comforting anchor in the storm of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "Where to now?" he asked as we climbed into his car. "Home," I said after a moment. "I've got a lot to think about." The ride was quiet, the tension between us heavy but unspoken. Revenge had tasted sweet in the moment, but now, as the dust settled, I felt the weight of it pressing down on me. I had won the battle, but the war within me was far from over. The days after the competition were eerily quiet. Mia moved out the next morning, taking only a small suitcase. The rest of her belongings sat untouched, a stark reminder of what we once had. She didn't say much as she left, just a tearful, "I'm sorry," before walking out the door. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I told myself it was what I wanted, to be rid of her, to start fresh. But the silence she left behind felt heavier than I anticipated. I threw myself into work, hoping to drown the ache with hours of coding and meetings. It worked, to a degree. During the day, I could almost convince myself I was fine. But at night, in the stillness of the house, the memories crept back in. Her laughter at our inside jokes, the way she'd sneak into my office with coffee during late-night projects, the look in her eyes when she said, "I do." They played in my mind like a broken record. One evening, weeks after the confrontation, I came across a forgotten envelope tucked under the cushions of the couch. It was addressed to me in Mia's handwriting. My breath caught as I opened it, the familiar curves of her script tugging at something deep within me. Lucas. By the time you read this, I'll be gone. I know you hate me, and you have every right to. What I did was selfish, cruel, and unforgivable. I betrayed you in ways I never thought I would. And I can't take any of it back. But I need you to know that I loved you. Truly. Deeply. And even when I strayed, it wasn't because you weren't enough, it was because I wasn't enough. I got lost somewhere along the way, caught up in things that didn't matter, chasing feelings that only left me emptier. And in the process, I destroyed the one thing that did matter, us. You were my anchor, Lucas, even when I didn't deserve you. And now, I hope you find someone who does. Someone who will see you for the incredible man you are and never let you go. Please don't let my mistakes define your future. I'm sorry. For everything. Mia. I stared at the letter for a long time, the words blurring as tears filled my eyes. It wasn't absolution, but it cracked open a part of me I'd tried to bury. As much as I wanted to hate her, a small part of me still loved the woman I thought she was. Months passed. I started therapy at the insistence of Kevin, who was worried about the growing shadows under my eyes. It helped, in small ways, to talk through the anger and grief, to unravel the tangled threads of our marriage. But some wounds refused to heal. One day, a mutual friend called with unexpected news. Mia had been in an accident, a hit-and-run on a rainy night as she crossed a busy street. She was in critical condition. My chest tightened as I processed the words. For a moment, I debated not going. She wasn't my responsibility anymore. But the thought of her lying there, alone, was unbearable. When I arrived at the hospital, the sight of her took my breath away. She looked fragile, her face pale against the stark white of the pillows. Machines beeped softly around her, their steady rhythm a cruel contrast to the chaos in my heart. I sat beside her, unsure of what to say. Mia, I whispered, my voice breaking. I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm here. Her eyes fluttered open briefly, her gaze unfocused. Lucas, she murmured, her voice barely audible. I'm sorry, for everything. Tears blurred my vision. I know, I said, taking her hand. I know. Mia passed away that night. The doctor said it was peaceful, but it didn't feel that way. It felt like a storm had swept through, leaving wreckage in its wake. I arranged the funeral, even though it felt surreal to be the one handling her final affairs. Ethan didn't show up, and I was glad. This wasn't his place. It was ours. As I stood by her grave, watching the casket lower into the earth, I realized that my revenge, though satisfying in the moment, had done nothing to protect me from the pain that followed. Mia was gone, and with her went the chance to ever truly reconcile what had happened between us. Life moved on, as it always does, but the shadows of our story lingered. I rebuilt slowly, learning to live with the ache of what could have been. But every now and then, I'd catch myself glancing at the dance floor of a wedding or a party, wondering what might have happened if we'd chosen a different path. The last dance had ended, but its echoes remained, haunting and bittersweet.